Welcome to Martial Mastery Media. Before watching, make sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode, and like this video to support our content. Share this video with friends, family, and fellow martial artists who are passionate about history, philosophy, and the spiritual roots of combat. Explore our catalog of videos on martial arts legends, lost techniques, revolutions, and historical fighting systems. Be sure to check out our sister channels Galactic Secrets, Mysteries of the Universe, Alien History and Space Exploration, and Myths Through Time, Ancient Myths, Legends, and Forgotten Stories. Thank you for being part of our community and helping us preserve the legacy of warriors and resistance traditions. Introduction: Martial Arts. Beyond combat throughout history, martial arts have never been limited to the practice halls, tournament mats, or battlefields. They have always carried something far deeper, a spirit of resistance, identity, and cultural survival. When governments, empires, and colonizers tried to stamp out native traditions, martial arts became more than physical training. They became acts of defiance. Techniques that looked like dances masked powerful strikes. Rituals that seemed like prayers concealed coded lessons in survival. Warrior codes not only taught how to fight, but also how to endure hardship, maintain unity, and protect the essence of a people's culture. From Asia to Africa, from the Americas to Europe, martial traditions kept alive the flame of freedom when everything else was under threat. They gave oppressed groups a way to resist physically, but also psychologically and spiritually. In this journey, we'll explore how martial arts were not just tools of combat, but lifelines of resistance, shaping revolutions, inspiring communities, and ensuring that cultures survived even under the harshest oppression. 1. Shaolin monks and Chinese rebellions. The Shaolin Temple remains one of the most iconic symbols of martial arts in the world, but its legacy is more than just cinematic flair. For centuries, Shaolin monks combined Chan, Zen, Buddhist philosophy with rigorous training in both unarmed combat and an arsenal of weapons. This made the temple not only a spiritual sanctuary, but also a formidable military institution. During the Ming Dynasty, Shaolin monks were sometimes called upon by the state to protect borders or defend against bandits. Yet in times of political collapse or foreign invasion, many Shaolin-trained fighters aligned with revolutionary movements. By the Qing Dynasty, martial sects and secret societies like the White Lotus and the Heaven and Earth Society drew heavily from Shaolin knowledge. These groups mixed martial discipline with mystical practices, promising initiates supernatural resilience against imperial forces. One of the most striking examples was the Boxer Rebellion, 1899-1901. Martial practitioners known as Boxers believed that through intense ritual and spiritual focus, they could become immune to bullets. Though modern weaponry ultimately crushed their resistance, the movement showcased how martial conviction could become a powerful form of psychological warfare. Their sacrifice planted seeds of national pride, inspiring later anti-colonial and nationalist uprisings in China. 2. Capoeira, the martial art disguised as dance. Perhaps no martial art embodies resistance more clearly than capoeira. Born in Brazil during the brutal era of slavery, capoeira was created by enslaved Africans who were denied the right to bear arms or formally train for combat. To survive, they embedded their martial skills into something their oppressors would overlook: dance. Capoeira's graceful spins, kicks, and acrobatic sweeps were practiced to the rhythm of drums and the berimbau, a single-string instrument. To outsiders, it looked like entertainment. To insiders, it was a deadly system of survival. Enslaved people practiced capoeira in rodas, circular gatherings where music, song, and ritual disguised combat lessons. Every dodge, kick, and sweep contained not only a physical skill, but also a cultural memory of freedom. Capoeira became essential in quilombos, settlements of escaped slaves. There, it served as both a unifying cultural expression and a weapon of defense against slave catchers and militias. Even after slavery's abolition, the Brazilian government criminalized capoeira, fearing its revolutionary potential. Practitioners risked prison just to train. Yet it survived underground, passed down through oral tradition and ritualized play, until its eventual legalization in the 20th century. Today, capoeira is recognized globally as both a martial art and a cultural treasure. But at its heart, it remains a testimony to the resilience of the oppressed, a reminder that freedom often begins in hidden movements and coded rituals. 3. Filipino martial arts, blades of revolution. The Philippines presents one of the clearest examples of martial arts fueling outright revolution. Under Spanish colonial rule, carrying bladed weapons was banned for natives, forcing Filipinos to adapt. Arts like Kali, Arnis, and Eskrima preserved techniques with sticks, farming tools, and improvised weapons. But the intent was never lost. Practitioners trained as if the sticks were swords, ensuring blade knowledge survived even without blades in hand. When revolution broke out in 1896, these skills became invaluable. Guerrilla fighters used bladed weapons like the bolo and kampilan alongside firearms in ambushes against Spanish forces. Later, under American colonization, Filipino martial traditions again served as a rallying point for cultural identity and resistance. During World War II, when Japanese forces occupied the Philippines, FMA once again proved crucial. Guerrillas armed with blades and sticks fought against heavily armed occupiers in the dense jungles where close-quarters combat was inevitable. Filipino martial arts were not only practical but symbolic. They embodied the survival of indigenous identity and the refusal to submit to foreign domination. Today, FMA is practiced globally, but its roots are deeply tied to revolution. Every strike and block echoes centuries of resistance and the spirit of a people who fought for survival and sovereignty. 4. Ninjutsu, the shadow arts of resistance. In Japan, the romanticized image of the ninja often obscures their historical reality. Unlike the elite samurai who fought in service of powerful lords, ninjas were often outsiders, peasants, ronin, or members of marginalized clans who developed techniques to resist overwhelming power. The art of ninjutsu emphasized unconventional warfare, espionage, infiltration, disguise, sabotage, and assassination. Clans from IGA and Koga specialized in these methods, offering their services to whoever opposed central authority. Sometimes local lords, sometimes peasant uprisings. While samurai warfare prized honor and direct combat, ninjutsu taught survival at all costs. If you could not meet power head-on, you undermined it in the shadows. For oppressed groups, this philosophy was revolutionary. It meant that even the weak had tools to resist the strong, not through brute force but through cunning, patience, and intelligence. Though the ninja age faded, their legacy remains one of strategic resistance. When faced with overwhelming odds, victory comes not from meeting the enemy's strength, but from exploiting their weaknesses. 5. African warrior traditions in anti-colonial struggles. Africa's martial traditions were as diverse as its peoples, but one unifying theme stands out: martial training as cultural strength in times of resistance. The Zulu kingdom, under the legendary leadership of Shaka Zulu in the early 19th century, redefined close combat warfare. His innovation of the ikwa, a short stabbing spear, allowed regiments to close quickly with European-style armies and overwhelm them in disciplined formations known as the bullhorn tactic. For years, Zulu warriors held their ground against better-armed colonial forces, proving that indigenous martial innovation could challenge the modern gun. Elsewhere in Africa, stick fighting, wrestling, and ritualized combat preserved martial traditions under colonial pressure. These arts were more than training. They were cultural rituals that maintained unity, morale, and identity in the face of displacement and oppression. In later independence struggles of the 20th century, martial traditions often blended with modern guerrilla tactics. Fighters drew strength not only from firearms, but from ancestral martial systems that gave them confidence, unity, and legitimacy in their fight for liberation. 6. Indian martial arts against imperial rule. India's martial heritage is among the richest in the world, and under colonial rule, it became a focal point of both suppression and resistance. Kalaripayattu, one of the oldest martial arts still practiced, trained warriors in strikes, locks, weapons, and even healing techniques. British colonial authorities, fearing organized uprisings, often suppressed or banned indigenous martial practices. Yet they survived underground, passed through families, temples, and secret training halls. In northern India, Sikh martial traditions like Shastar Vidya and its battlefield counterpart Gatka kept alive the identity of the warrior saint, or Sant Sipahi. Sikh warriors saw martial practice not just as physical training but as religious duty, the defense of justice and the oppressed. The British feared these traditions precisely because they were unifying. Training in martial arts was a way of remembering independence when official history tried to erase it. It kept alive the sense of dignity, courage, and discipline that became essential when India's independence movement rose in the 20th century. 7. Martial arts in modern guerrilla warfare. In the 20th century, martial arts and revolutions adapted to new conditions of modern war. In Vietnam, guerrilla fighters facing French and later American armies drew upon traditional combat knowledge alongside modern tactics. Jungle fighting often came down to ambushes, close quarters combat, and blade work, where martial skills were invaluable. In Korea, during Japanese occupation, 1910-1945, martial arts like Taekyon and Proto-Hapkido were suppressed but continued underground. Their survival was not only a matter of cultural pride but also a silent form of resistance to assimilation. Elsewhere, independence movements across Africa, Asia, and Latin America often incorporated indigenous martial practices into guerrilla training. Even when firearms dominated, martial arts gave fighters discipline, resilience, and the ability to adapt under pressure. 8. Symbolism, culture, and the hidden curriculum. Martial arts resistance was not always about the battlefield. Often its greatest power lay in symbolism. When colonizers outlawed languages, traditions, or ceremonies, martial arts carried these memories in physical form. A kata, a dance, or a sparring game could preserve ancient movements and values disguised as entertainment. Practicing forbidden arts became an act of rebellion in itself. Martial training also built solidarity. It taught discipline, unity, and loyalty, qualities essential for underground resistance. To practice martial arts was to say, "Our culture survives, our people endure, and we will not be broken." 9. Women. Warriors in resistance movements history often forgets them, but women played central roles in martial resistance. In Africa, women joined independence struggles, using both weapons and indigenous martial practices. In Brazil, women practiced capoeira alongside men, helping preserve it in times when persecution made practice dangerous. In India and Sikh history, women like Mai Bhago led armies into battle, embodying the Sant Sipahi spirit. Women were also cultural guardians. When men were imprisoned or killed, it was often women who kept martial knowledge alive, teaching it to the next generation. Their contributions ensured that martial traditions survived across centuries, becoming lifelines for communities under siege. Then lessons for today: ethics and legacy. The story of martial arts and revolutions is not just about the past. It offers lessons for today. Modern martial artists inherit systems that once preserved entire cultures. These arts remind us that combat is not just about defeating an opponent. It's about protecting dignity, resilience, and moral strength. They also teach that martial arts can be corrupted if monopolized by elites, but when returned to the people, they shine brightest as tools of freedom and survival. For anyone who trains today, the lesson is clear. Martial arts are not only physical skills, they are ethical systems. They teach that true strength lies not in oppression, but in defending the weak, standing for justice, and carrying forward the memory of those who resisted before us. Conclusion: the eternal flame of resistance. Martial arts in revolutions are stories of courage, ingenuity, and cultural endurance. From the Roda of Capoeira to the shadows of ninjutsu, from the spears of Zulu regiments to the bolos of Filipino guerrillas, these arts prove that culture is stronger than conquest. Weapons may break, empires may fall, but traditions rooted in identity, solidarity, and resilience endure. Martial arts show us that the path to freedom is not just fought with arms, it is fought with memory, spirit, and community. By studying these stories, we honor those who resisted tyranny with their bodies, minds, and spirits. And we remind ourselves that martial arts are not just about the fight in front of us. They are about preserving the essence of who we are. Call to action. Join the martial mastery community. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the role of martial arts in revolutions and resistance, subscribe to Martial Mastery Media and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Like and share this video with friends, family, and fellow martial artists who care about history, culture, and the warrior spirit. Explore our other videos on martial arts legends, lost techniques, and hidden traditions. Check out our sister channels, Galactic Secrets and Myths Through Time, for even more explorations into mystery and history. Thank you for being part of the Martial Mastery Media community. Together, we keep alive the memory of resistance, honor the courage of the past, and ensure that the spirit of martial arts continues to inspire freedom in every generation.